Okay, whoa. You weren't kidding when you said you wanted a deep dive on minimalism and spirituality.
Right.
I got to admit, when I saw all those articles, I thought, hold on, are we building a library here?
Mm,
But getting into it, I see what you're after. It's more than just tidying up,
yeah.
right? It's like, how can we minimize all the stuff to really boost, like, maximize our spiritual journey?
It's really fascinating how those two connect. And, it's a much older idea than a lot of folks might think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of people, they see minimalism as just this trendy thing, but actually you can trace it way back to like some core teachings in the Bible.
Huh. I have to admit, when I hear minimalism, the first thing I picture is like one of those perfect kitchens you see on Instagram,
Yeah.
with just three little spice jars all lined up perfectly.
Yeah.
But okay, back to the Bible. Where do we actually see this idea in there?
Well, one that really jumps out is in Matthew chapter 19, verse 21. It's where Jesus is talking to this rich young man, tells him to sell all his possessions and come follow him, like detach from all that wealth.
Pretty radical, Ree.
It really is. And it makes you think, what are we holding on to so tight today that might be holding us back?
Exactly.
Spiritually, I mean. Are we so busy getting more stuff that we're missing out on something much bigger?
It's a good question to ask ourselves. And, that's not the only time this comes up. You see this theme of detachment popping up all over in Scripture. Like in Luke 12:15, Jesus warns us about being greedy. He says life isn't about how much stuff you've got.
Man, that one really hits home for me, especially nowadays, right? It's like everywhere you turn, someone's telling you to buy, 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 have more, be more, like this crazy treadmill you can't get off.
It's true. That constant pressure to have more, it can wear you down, both, mentally and spiritually.
Yeah.
And that's where I think minimalism offers a different way of looking at things. It's saying, hey, real fulfillment, it doesn't come from stuff. So instead of always adding more, what happens when we start letting go? One of the articles you sent, it talked about how that can actually help us get rid of distractions. And that got me thinking about how cluttered our minds can get.
For sure. It's like in Mark 4.9, the parable of the sower. Jesus talks about how all these distractions worry, wanting things, they choke out the word of God. They don't let it really take root.
Okay, here's where things get really interesting to me. Back then, maybe those distractions were about, actual fields and crops and all that. But today, it's like our minds are the fields.
Right.
We've got notifications, news feeds, everyone trying to show off their perfect life. So maybe minimalism isn't just about the physical stuff. What if it's about clearing out our minds so we can hear God?
That's a really great point, that connection you made there. And, a lot of the writers in those articles, they talked about how minimalism helps you build a stronger bond with God. And it's not just about things outside of us, it's also the clutter inside us.
So what kind of internal stuff are we holding on to that might be making all that clutter?
Well, think about Philippians 3.8, where Paul says, knowing Christ is worth more than anything else, even giving up everything else. Like, what could be more valuable than knowing Christ?
Right.
But we still hold on to things that pull us away from that.
Is it kind of like when we need other people to tell us we're good enough?
Yeah.
Instead of getting that feeling from God, like we fill ourselves up with worries and doubts instead of letting God's love fill us.
Exactly. And minimalism can help with that. Instead of always looking for approval from other people, we can find real peace and lasting contentment in our relationship with God.
Speaking of peace and contentment, one of the verses that really hit me from all those articles was from 1 Timothy 6.6. Paul says that having a godly life, a life where you're content, is like having a huge treasure. Makes you rethink what real wealth is.
Absolutely. It's a powerful message, especially these days when everyone's obsessed with money and stuff. But minimalism is like, hey, wake up. Real contentment, it comes from inside you.
It's like we're trained to think we always need more to be happy. Bigger house, nicer car, more followers online, whatever. But what if real happiness is about just enjoying what you've got? Finding the good in the simple things.
That's the whole idea. Minimalism isn't about giving things up. It's about realizing that true abundance doesn't come from more stuff. It comes from being grateful for what you have, feeling content. Reminds me of Matthew 11.28-30, where Jesus talks about offering rest to those who are tired and carrying heavy loads.
I was thinking about that verse too. I bet a lot of us feel weighed down by all the stuff we're carrying around, both physically and emotionally. It's exhausting trying to keep up with it all.
Yeah.
What if letting go is how we find that rest Jesus talks about?
I love that connection you made. And that leads us to another really big part of this whole thing, focusing on what lasts forever, the eternal.
Right. Like in Colossians 3:2, where it says to set our minds on things above, not on earthly things. It doesn't mean we ignore everything here on earth,
Mm.
but maybe it's about looking at things from a different perspective.
Exactly. Minimalism isn't about running away from the world. It's about seeing it through like an eternal lens, knowing that things here are temporary, but our connection with God lasts forever.
And maybe when we see things that way, it helps us focus on what's really important, spending our time and energy on relationships, helping others, going after things we're passionate about.
That's a great way to put it. When we're not so caught up in getting and managing all this stuff, we
Mhm.
free up our time, energy, even money to focus on the things that have lasting value.
Okay, so we've talked about how minimalism shows up in the Bible and how letting go can have some pretty amazing benefits for our souls. But it can't just be an idea, right? You sent a ton of practical tips. How do we actually start living this out?
You're absolutely right. It's got to be more than just talk. And a lot of people start their minimalism journey by simplifying their physical space.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Cleaning out a drawer feels a lot easier than like selling everything you own and following some guru up a mountain.
Right. It doesn't have to be this huge overnight change. You can start small. Pick a drawer, a shelf, maybe a corner of a room. Then look at each thing and ask yourself, does this really have a purpose? Or is it just taking up space?
It's almost like taking stock, right? And maybe while we're doing that, we start to let go of some of the emotions we've tied to our stuff.
That's a great point. Speaking of emotional baggage, that's another place where minimalism can really help us. Think about all those old hurts you might be holding on to, regrets, maybe times you haven't forgiven someone.
Ooh, that's deep. Those things can really weigh us down, like lugging around invisible suitcases full of rocks.
That's a great way to put it. And letting go of all that is key to being truly free, spiritually. Remember in Matthew 11:25, Jesus talks about how important it is to forgive others if we want to be spiritually healthy ourselves.
It's like we finally put down those heavy suitcases and open ourselves up to God's healing power. And I guess when we're letting go of things, both physically and emotionally, that's when finding quiet time, being alone with our thoughts, becomes even more important.
Absolutely. We live in a world where we're constantly plugged in, always surrounded by noise and stimulation. No wonder it's hard to connect with God.
I totally feel that. It's like we're drowning in information and distractions.
Yeah.
We need to find those moments of stillness where we can actually hear what God's trying to tell us. Like that verse in Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God.
That's such a powerful reminder, and that's something minimalism can really help with. When we simplify things and create space, we make room for quiet and stillness.
So we've talked about getting rid of clutter in our homes, letting go of emotional baggage, and finding those quiet moments. But what about creativity? One article mentioned that minimalism can actually help you be more creative. How does that work?
That is fascinating, isn't it? I think it has to do with, creating space, not just in our houses or schedules, but in our minds too. When we declutter our stuff and clear out those mental cobwebs, it's like we're making room for new ideas to pop up.
Like literally letting the light in,
Hmm.
both physically and, I guess, metaphorically. When we're not bombarded with distractions and stuff, we have more brain power left for creative things.
You got it. It's about connecting with that divine spark within us, that creative potential we each have.
So minimalism isn't just about simplifying, it's about like amplifying those God-given gifts and using them in ways that make us happy and fulfilled. That's really powerful.
It really is. And that creative potential can be such a force for good, for growing as a person, connecting with others, and making a positive impact on the world around you.
It's like we're being called to use our talents and passions to serve others, to shine our light.
And that service can take so many forms. Volunteering your time, using your skills to help someone out, or even just sharing your unique perspective with others.
It's realizing that we're all connected and that what we do, even the small things, can make a difference. We're part of something much bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. And minimalism can really help us appreciate that connection even more. When we let go of being attached to things, we're more likely to see how much abundance we already have in our lives and what others around us are going through.
It's like we're shifting from thinking about what we don't have to what we do have, from competing with each other to working together, from feeling alone to feeling connected. That's a huge change.
It really is. It lets us see the world with love, compassion, and thankfulness.
It's about seeing the worth and dignity in every person, no matter what they own or where they come from.
And when you see people like that, it makes you want to act with more kindness, generosity, and humility.
It's all about those values Jesus taught: love, justice, mercy, peace.
And when we really live those values out, it changes our lives and the lives of those around us. It's about being the change we want to see, starting with ourselves.
And that change doesn't have to be some huge, scary thing. It can start with small, deliberate choices every day, like choosing to spend less time scrolling through social media and more time actually talking to the people you love, or choosing to have experiences instead of buying more things, or just being grateful for what you already have instead of always wanting more.
That's a great point. It's those small, consistent choices that end up shaping our lives.
And it's a journey, right? There's no finish line for minimalism. It's a constant process of checking in with ourselves, letting go of things that don't serve us, and making room for what's truly important.
It's about embracing the process of growing and changing, knowing that we're always evolving and learning.
And sometimes it's about taking a step back and asking those tough questions, like, what am I holding on to that's keeping me from being truly free? What am I chasing that's leaving me feeling empty?
Those are such important questions to ask ourselves. It's about understanding who we are at our core, what we really value, and then being brave enough to live in a way that matches those values.
And living that way, being true to yourself, can be so powerful. It brings a sense of peace, purpose, and genuineness that no amount of stuff can ever match.
Absolutely. It's about realizing that true wealth isn't about what you own. It's about the quality of your relationships, the depth of your experiences, and the positive impact you have on the world.
As we've been talking about all this, I keep coming back to the idea that minimalism is, at its core, about freedom.
Yes.
It's about breaking free from all that pressure to buy, from other people's expectations, and that feeling like you always need more. It's about making space to just breathe, to be present in the moment, to connect with who you really are.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's about finding that balance where you're living in a way that's true to your values, your faith, and the purpose God is giving you.
And that kind of freedom, it can be so liberating. It lets you live with intention, make choices that come from your heart, and experience a deeper sense of joy and fulfillment.
That's right. And one of the things that I've noticed, kind of an unexpected benefit of minimalism, is that it often leads to a greater sense of gratitude.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, when we start letting go of all the extra stuff in our lives, we naturally start to appreciate what we already have more. We start to notice those simple things that bring us joy, things we might have been taking for granted. A warm cup of coffee on a chilly morning, a good conversation with someone you love, the beauty of a sunset.
It's like we're retraining our minds to focus on the good, to find joy in the present moment, and to be thankful for all the blessings we have.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective can be really powerful. It can help us go through life with more contentment and peace.
It's about realizing that true abundance isn't about having more, but about appreciating what we already have.
And that appreciation can go beyond just our own stuff. It can help us see the needs of other people more clearly. When we're not so focused on our own wants and things, we're more likely to notice how we can help those around us.
It's about understanding that we're all part of a community and that we should take care of each other.
Absolutely. And that feeling of community can be so enriching. It can bring a sense of belonging, purpose, and connection that goes beyond just ourselves.
It's about knowing that we're all in this together and that we can do so much more when we work together.
As we've been exploring this connection between minimalism and spirituality, I keep coming back to the idea that it's not just about what we do, but about who we're becoming along the way.
Oh, I like that. It's an inner transformation, not just changing things on the outside.
Exactly. It's about developing qualities within ourselves, like gratitude, contentment, generosity, and compassion.
It's like making our inside world match our outside world, creating a sense of harmony and wholeness.
And that wholeness can spread outwards,
Mm.
affecting our relationships, our work, even the world around us.
So it's not just about cleaning up our houses, it's about cleaning up our hearts and minds.
Exactly. It's about making space for the things that really matter. Love, connection, creativity, and a deeper relationship with God.
One thing that keeps coming back to me is this idea that minimalism can help us embrace simplicity. In a world that's constantly throwing distractions and demands at us, it can be so grounding to simplify our lives and focus on what's really important.
Absolutely. There's a certain beauty and elegance and simplicity. It's about stripping away the excess and focusing on the core, the heart of what truly matters.
It's like finding that quiet place within ourselves, that place of peace and stillness that helps us handle life's challenges with more grace and ease.
And that sense of peace can be so freeing. It gets rid of those anxieties and worries that often bog us down and helps us experience a deeper level of joy and contentment.
It's about realizing that true happiness doesn't come from getting more stuff. It comes from finding inner peace and being thankful for what we already have.
And that gratitude can go beyond just material possessions. It can include all the blessings in our lives, our relationships, our health, our talents, the beauty of nature.
It's about shifting our focus from what we're missing to what we have, from what we want to what we already possess.
And that shift in perspective can be totally life-changing. It can open our eyes to a world of abundance and possibilities we might never have seen before.
It's about realizing that we already have everything we need to live a happy and fulfilling life.
One of the articles you sent talked about how important it is to let go of control. It said that minimalism can help us loosen our grip on needing to control every little thing in our lives and instead surrender to something bigger than ourselves.
That's a new way of looking at it for me.
Yeah.
But it makes sense, right? When we're so attached to our stuff and our plans, it's tough to just let go and trust that God has a plan for us.
It's true. When we simplify our lives and let go of needing to own so much, it becomes easier to surrender to God's will and to trust that He's leading us in the right direction.
It's like giving up the idea that we're in control and embracing the mystery of faith.
Exactly. And that surrender can be so incredibly liberating. It allows us to step out from behind the wheel and let God take over.
It's about having faith that God knows what's best for us, even when we can't see the whole picture.
And that trust can bring such a sense of peace and calmness, even when things get tough.
It's realizing that we're not alone on this journey. We have a loving God who's always with us.
And that awareness can be so comforting and empowering. It can help us face our challenges with courage and resilience, knowing that we have a divine source of strength to lean on.
You know, through all this discussion, what's really struck me is how deeply connected minimalism and spirituality are. It's so much more than just cleaning up your house or simplifying your schedule. It's about living in a way that lines up with your values, deepening your relationship with God, and making room for what truly matters.
I couldn't agree more. It's a journey of transformation that can touch every part of our lives, bringing us closer to the people we love, to our passions, and to the purpose God has given us.
And it's a journey that's open to anyone, no matter your background, your beliefs, or your circumstances.
That's right. Minimalism is like a framework, a set of principles you can adapt and apply to your own unique journey.
Okay, so as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, here's something I'm curious about. If minimalism helps us focus on what lasts forever, the eternal grist, what are some specific things our listeners can do to live that out in their everyday lives?
Well, it's like when we declutter our physical spaces, it's not just about getting rid of stuff. It's
Right.
like we create the sense of spaciousness in our homes, but also like in our minds.
Okay, yeah.
And that kind of mental space, it can be incredibly fertile for creativity. It's like, think about clearing out those cobwebs and letting the light in.
I love that. It makes so much sense. When we're not surrounded by distractions, overwhelmed with stuff, our minds are free to think more creatively.
Exactly. It's like minimalism creates this stillness, a quiet space inside of us where inspiration can actually take root and grow.
And that inspiration, it can show up in so many ways, right? It's not just about artistic stuff like painting or writing. Maybe it's finding a new solution to a problem at work, being more present with your family, or even just looking at your everyday tasks in a fresh way.
You got it. It's about tapping into that divine spark we all have, that unique creative potential.
So minimalism isn't just about simplifying. It's about amplifying those gifts God gave us, using them to find joy and fulfillment. That's pretty amazing.
It really is. And that creative potential, it can be such a powerful tool for personal growth, for connecting with others, for making the world a better place.
It's like we're being called to use our talents and passions to serve others, to shine our light.
And that service can take so many forms. Volunteering your time, using your skills to help someone in need, even just sharing your unique perspective with the world.
It's about recognizing that we're all connected and that what we do matters, even the small things. We're part of something much bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. And that interconnectedness, it's something minimalism can really help us appreciate. When we let go of that need to own things, we're more likely to see all the abundance we already have and the needs of those around us.
It's like shifting our focus from what we don't have to what we do have, from competing with each other to working together, from feeling isolated to feeling connected. That's a huge shift.
It is a huge shift. It's about seeing the world with love, compassion, and gratitude.
It's about recognizing that each person has worth and dignity, regardless of what they own or their social status.
And when we see that in others, it inspires us to act with kindness, generosity, and humility.
It's about embracing the values that Jesus taught: love, justice, mercy, peace.
And those values, when we really live them out, they can change our lives and the lives of those around us. It's about being the change you want to see in the world, starting with yourself.
And that change, it doesn't have to be this big, overwhelming thing. It can start with small, intentional choices every day. Like maybe spending less time on social media and more time connecting with your loved ones, or choosing experiences over possessions, or focusing on gratitude for what you already have instead of always wanting more.
That's a really great point. It's those small, consistent choices that really shape our lives in the long run.
And it's a journey, isn't it?
Mm.
There's no finish line with minimalism. It's an ongoing process of checking in with yourself, letting go of what doesn't serve you, and making room for what truly matters.
It's about embracing that process of growth and transformation, knowing that we're always evolving and learning along the way.
And sometimes that means taking a step back and asking yourself some hard questions.
Mhm.
Like, what am I holding on to that's keeping me from being truly free? What am I chasing that's leaving me feeling empty and unfulfilled?
Those are some of the most important questions we can ask ourselves. It's about figuring out who we are at our core, what we truly value, and then having the courage to live a life that reflects those values.
And when you can live that way, when your actions match your beliefs, that can be incredibly empowering. It brings a sense of peace, purpose, and authenticity that you just can't get from material possessions.
You're so right. True wealth isn't about the stuff we own. It's about our relationships, our experiences, and the positive impact we have on the world.
You know, as we've been talking, I keep coming back to this idea that minimalism is, at its core, about freedom.
It really is.
It's about breaking free from that consumerism trap, from what other people expect of us, and from that constant feeling like we need more. It's about making space to breathe, to be present, to connect with who we really are deep down.
That's such a beautiful way to describe it. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're living in alignment with your values, your faith, and the purpose God has for your life.
And that kind of freedom, it's liberating. It allows you to live intentionally, to make choices that come from your heart, and to experience a much deeper sense of joy and fulfillment.
That's it, exactly. And I've noticed that one of the, I guess you could say, unexpected benefits of minimalism is that it often leads to a deeper sense of gratitude.
Oh, that's interesting. I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, think about it. When we start to let go of all the excess in our lives, it's natural to start appreciating what we already have more. We begin to notice those simple pleasures we might have been taking for granted. A cup of coffee on a cold morning, a heartfelt conversation with a loved one, a beautiful sunset.
It's like we're teaching our minds to focus on the good stuff, to find joy in this moment, and to be thankful for all the blessings in our lives.
Precisely. And that shift in perspective can be incredibly powerful. It can help us move through life with more contentment and peace.
It's about realizing that abundance isn't about having more, but about appreciating what we already have.
And that appreciation can go beyond our own personal belongings and open our eyes to the needs of others. When we're not so wrapped up in our own wants and desires, we're more likely to see ways we can help those around us.
It's about understanding that we're all part of a community,
Yeah.
and we have a responsibility to take care of each other.
Exactly. And that sense of community, it can be so enriching. It can bring a sense of belonging, purpose, and connection that goes beyond our individual lives.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together, and that we can accomplish so much more when we work together.
As we've been talking about this connection between minimalism and spirituality, what keeps coming back to me? It's not just about what we do, but who we become in the process.
Ooh, I like that. It's a journey of inner transformation, not just changing the external stuff.
That's right. It's about cultivating those inner qualities, things like gratitude, contentment, generosity, and compassion.
It's about making our inner world match our outer world, finding that sense of harmony and wholeness.
And that wholeness, it can radiate outwards, impacting our relationships, our work, even the world around us.
So it's not just about decluttering our homes. It's about decluttering our hearts and minds.
Exactly. It's about creating space for the things that truly matter. Love, connection, creativity, and a deeper relationship with God.
You know, one thing that really speaks to me is this idea that minimalism can help us to embrace simplicity. In a world that's constantly bombarding us with distractions and demands, it can be incredibly grounding to simplify our lives and focus on what's truly essential.
Absolutely. There's a certain beauty and elegance in simplicity. It's about stripping away all the excess and getting back to the core, the essence of what truly matters.
It's like finding that quiet center within ourselves, that place of peace and stillness that helps us navigate life's challenges with more grace and ease.
And that peace, it can be incredibly liberating. It frees us from those anxieties and worries that tend to drag us down and lets us experience a deeper sense of joy and contentment.
It's about recognizing that true happiness doesn't come from acquiring more and more things. It comes from cultivating inner peace and gratitude for what we already have.
And that gratitude, it can expand beyond just the material things and encompass all the blessings in our lives. Our relationships, our health, our talents, the beauty of nature.
It's about shifting our focus from what we're lacking to what we already have, from what we want, what we already possess.
And that shift in perspective can be transformative. It can open us up to a world of abundance and possibility we might have never even imagined.
It's about realizing we already have everything we need to live a happy and fulfilling life.
You know, one of those articles you sent over, it talked about letting go of control. It suggested that minimalism can help us loosen our grip on the need to control everything and surrender to a higher power.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
But it makes sense, right? When we're clinging to our possessions and our plans, it can be hard to let go and trust that God has a plan for us.
It's true. When we simplify our lives and detach from material things, it becomes easier to surrender to God's will and trust that He's leading us down the right path.
It's like letting go of that illusion of control and embracing the mystery of faith.
Exactly. And that surrender can be so freeing. It allows us to step back and let God take the wheel, so to speak.
It's about trusting that God knows what's best for us, even when we can't see the whole picture.
And that trust can bring such peace and calmness, even when life throws us curveballs.
It's about realizing we're not alone on this journey, that there's a loving God walking beside us every step of the way.
And that awareness, it's so comforting and empowering. It can help us face challenges with courage and strength, knowing that we have a divine source of support to draw on.
You know, throughout this conversation, I've been really struck by the profound connection between minimalism and spirituality. It goes so much deeper than just decluttering our homes or simplifying our lives. It's about aligning our actions with our values, deepening our relationship with God, and creating space for what truly matters.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's a journey of transformation that can affect every single part of our lives, bringing us closer to the people we love, the things we're passionate about, and the purpose God has given us.
And it's a journey that's open to anyone, no matter what their background is, what they believe, or what their circumstances are.
That's right. Minimalism is like a framework, a set of guidelines you can adapt and apply to your own individual journey.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's a question that's been on my mind. If minimalism helps us to focus on the eternal, what are some specific things our listeners can do to actually live out that focus in their daily lives?
That's a great question to end on, and honestly, the answer is going to be a little different for everyone. But one thing I think we can all do, it's like taking inventory of our lives.
Okay, I like that. But what do you mean by taking inventory exactly?
Well, it's about pausing and really looking at how we're spending our time, our energy, the things we put our effort into. Do those things line up with what we truly believe is important? Are they bringing us closer to God or maybe pushing us further away?
So it's like holding up a mirror, right? Asking yourself those tough questions, like what's taking up space that doesn't need to be there? Or what am I clinging to that's stopping me from really living?
Exactly. And it's not about beating yourself up or feeling guilty. It's about being kind to yourself, being curious as you go through this.
It's about recognizing that we're all works in progress, always room to grow. Maybe the first step is finding those little concrete things we can do to make more room for what's truly important.
I agree. Maybe it's starting your day with a few minutes of prayer or meditation, or making time to connect with loved ones without all the distractions, or even just deciding to declutter one small area of your home every week.
It's about finding those little pockets of peace and simplicity in our busy lives. And maybe as we create those spaces, we'll start to see things differently, feel a bit lighter, freer than before.
That's the beautiful thing about minimalism, right? It's not about denying yourself things. It's about setting yourself free. It's about letting go of what weighs us down so we can really take off.
You know, as you were talking, that verse from Micah 6:8 popped into my head. He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. It seems like minimalism, especially when we connect it to our faith, can help us actually do those things. walk with God, show mercy, and act justly in the world.
Wow, that's such a perfect connection. It's about letting those core values guide our choices and actions. And maybe, as we simplify our lives, making room for what's truly important, we start to see the needs of others more clearly. We become more compassionate, more ready to help.
So it's not just about changing ourselves, it's about making a positive difference in the world. It's about using what we have wisely, being aware of how our choices impact others, and living in a way that honors both God and our fellow human beings.
I love that. You put it perfectly. Minimalism, deep down, it's about creating a life that's full of meaning, purpose, and love. And that's a journey worth taking.
It really is. And to all our listeners out there, keep exploring this connection between minimalism and your spiritual journey. There are so many resources available to help you, books, podcasts, even online communities. And hey, those articles you sent over, they're a great place to start. What really stood out to you from all those articles? What resonated most?
That's a great question for everyone to sit with, because ultimately this isn't just about learning more, it's about changing and growing. What's one small step you can take today to bring a little more of that minimalist spirit into your life?
It could be something as simple as clearing off your desk, maybe unsubscribing from one of those email lists that just clutters your inbox, or even taking 5 minutes to just sit in silence and breathe. This is your journey. Take what works for you, leave the rest, and trust the process.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We hope it gave you some new things to think about and inspired you to explore how minimalism can transform your own spiritual walk.